Welcome to Programming Rainbow. In this video, we will be working on adding Haskell support to NvChad, a Neovim configuration. This follows on with my original NvChad Neovim video. You don't need to watch any other video, just that one. All the other add-on languages like Haskell or C++ or anything like that are their own videos. Okay, if you would like to follow along with this video, all the information can be found on github.com, Programming Rainbow, and this is NvChad TAC 2.5. Okay, and if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find the different languages that I have added information for, and we find Haskell down here next to the bottom, the last one I've added. And I'm also going to show a project that I'm working on in Haskell. If you want to check this project out, it is Beginner Guide to SDL2 in Haskell. That is also on github.com, Programming Rainbow, Beginner's Guide to SDL2 in Haskell. So you can clone that and play around with that if you want to play with some Haskell and some SDL2. And that will be in a future video. So let's look at some code. Okay, so here we have some Haskell code, and there is no real syntax highlighting. There's a little bit of coloring going on, but most everything is white. So it's TreeSitter's trying to do a little something it looks like, but it's not really correct syntax highlighting. Let's just check out this code real quick.
SDL.
So I can move around the SDL.
Haskell.
And Haskell bounces off the wall and says Haskell. Whenever I press spacebar, it changes the color and it says SDL. So let's get some syntax highlighting. So if you want to add syntax highlighting, you can just hit Shift : and you can go capital T, capital S, capital I, install, and then just Haskell. But I'm actually going to add it into the code. I'm going to open up second window here, my Scratch window, and go into my local config nvim to configure Neovim. And this configuration is based on the first video that I did with the configuring NvChad. So that's where I'm at in the code on this one. Okay, so if we want to add a language, we can go into Lua configs and then treesitter.lua, and we can add it in here. So I'll just kind of add it in alphabetically. Now when I restart Neovim, I'm just going to get rid of this window. When I restart this one, it's not going to install right away, but when I open up a Haskell file is when it's going to kick off and install. So I'm about to open it now. And down here we see nvim-treesitter is compiling, pulling in and compiling the Haskell support. There we go. Now we have syntax highlighting, so everything is like multicolored. It's very easy to look at it and understand if you've written a string wrong or something else like that. Okay, so that's syntax highlighting. It's pretty straightforward. Let's move on to Haskell Language Server, HLS. And Haskell Language Server has linting in it, it has formatting in it, and it has the language server support in it, okay? We will actually be disabling the formatting and using conform to do formatting for us, but we will leave the linting on and we'll be using the standard language server stuff. So because I want to configure Haskell Language Server, but I want to disable the formatting, well, we've already kind of seen this before. If you've seen my C video, it's going to be the exact same thing. It's not specific to any language server. It's part of, but I already have the code down here. So let me just look for, I'll just look for C++. And down here, when I configure the language server right here, I have this looks very standard, like it's a default, like I'm just sending on init equals on init, capabilities equal capabilities, and on attach is almost that way, but instead we have these lines here that is disabling, well, rather these two lines, that's disabling the format. So that means the language server will still be set up working properly, but we're telling the formatter to not use it. So I'm just going to grab this code right here. Now this is for Clang D, but I'm going to just change it to Haskell Language Server. So I'm going to copy this, or actually we could just click over here. So I'm going to open up my Scratch window again, and this time we're going into nvim-lspconfig. Okay. So if you don't have Haskell Language Server on your system, you can just use Mason to install it. So we can just add it here. So it's HLS, it's for Haskell Language Server. And this is going to allow Mason to automatically download it and install it for us. It's not going to configure it and run it though. If we wanted to use the default configuration, we could put it here. But since we want to disable formatting, we're not going to use this default list that runs through this for loop. Instead, we're going to do similar to what we did here, where we configured the Lua language server. So I'm just going to add it above here. And this is the Clang one. So we can, if we look up here, all this is doing is it's going through a for loop of whatever is in this table here. And it's just setting on attached, on init, on capabilities. And if we look down here, the same thing's happening, but we're editing the on attached. So I'm going to change this from Clang to HLS. So this is going to configure the Haskell language server. So it's going to enable it for us, but it's also going to be disabling the formatter, but everything else. So if we were just using the default configuration, we could have put it up here, but since I do need to disable this, and I kind of want to show why I would want to disable this. So I'm going to comment this out for a minute, and I'm just going to put it up here in the default. Let me put a little comma after it. Right here. So this will just be a default version. So formatting will be enabled, linting, and the language server, everything will be enabled. Okay, let's get rid of that. And I'm going to restart. We go in here and it does, oops, hold on. Oh, I know what's happening here. Sorry. So I did have some stuff on my system, but let me just show you Mason. Mason takes a little while to actually install. So what's happening is it's not actually installed yet, and I don't have a system version. So I'm getting that error right there because it's still actually downloading. It's quite a hefty package, this one. So it's going to take a minute or two to get going. You can have a system version one. I'm in Archlinux, by the way, and I can have these as the system ones, but I kind of like to let Neovim, if I can do it through Mason, I want to do it through Mason. So now we are up and running. So I am going to restart this again. It's probably fine. It's not popping up here yet. It may pop up and it may not. It does take like a minute. So I'm just going to restart it anyway. Okay. So that's why we got the error last time. Now, Haskell Language Server is a little bit sluggish to start up. Okay, starting to come online now. Okay, so Haskell Language Server is running now. And do you see how everything's formatted here? I've got 4 space indentation. I have 4 space here. And I also have these lined up, these double colons lined up. And they're lined up. And up here in the imports. So I'm going to save this file now. And it's going to format it using the Haskell Language Server. And we're going to see a couple things happen here. I believe these qualifieds are going to flip to the other side of SDL. And everything else is going to drop to 2 spaces. And none of these other things are going to be lined up that are easy to read. They're not going to be lined up. Let's see if we have anything else in the code. Should have some, yeah, some guards. So yeah, I don't think these things are going to be lined up. So let's save it. Okay, everything moved over. Guards are still lined up. I guess they would need to be. Everything's 2 spaces now. And we come up here and this isn't going to work for me. This is actually going to cause several problems. So we can add in some language support to allow this, but I don't want to do that because it's not there by default. And also, if I go to compile it right now, it's actually not going to work. If I just try to run it, it's going to give me an error. Okay, so the Haskell Language Server just messed up my code. And it's telling me I can use this, import qualified post. Okay, but I don't want to do that. And the other way to fix it would, I could say something like this. I could say import SDL qualified as SDL. Yeah. But then I get this. The Haskell Language Server is saying, hey, I know that you wrote it the correct way, but wouldn't it be better if you simplified it back to this again? And it shouldn't be this way. So this is just silly. It's suggesting this, which is more concise. I do like that it's more concise, but it's backwards. And then I can add in something to fix the fact that it's backwards, but it just refuses to let me have it the correct way in the first place. So it should be like this. This is how my code originally was. Right. This is the correct way right here. Import qualified SDL. Now, if I save this, it's going to flip it on me. And that's kind of infuriating because if I use another formatter now, they'll fail because it doesn't understand this, because it's going to tell me qualified is in the wrong spot. Why is it here? But it's Haskell Language Server that's putting it there. So that's one problem. The other problem is it just doesn't look nice. For one, I don't like the 2 spacing. We could fix it with the 4 spacing, but then we still have this problem up here. And again, this can be fixed with workarounds, but it's just the default is just wrong. And I also want to use stylish Haskell as well, and I can't run 2 of them, so that won't work. And I could run stylish Haskell by itself, which would fix this problem here, but then it would ignore all spacing going on here, and I'd have to do it all manually, and it'd never fix anything for me. So this is just all a headache. So basically, we want to disable formatting, unless you like it this way. But I'm going to disable the formatting. So I kind of played around for hours with this, and I just was never happy with it. I tried a whole bunch of different things, setting it up, like using setup and Haskell, and then switching which formatter I wanted to use. And it was just never in a kind of usable fashion for me. So I'm going to use this. So this is going to disable the formatting, but everything else is still going to be on. Since I'm using this to enable it, I don't want to run this default servers because that's just running this loop right here. So I'm going to delete this. So now we basically lost formatting. Okay. But let's look at the Haskell Language Server, make sure it's working. So I'm just going to redo this. I kind of want to, I'm going to undo, well, I'm going to undo it after I restart it. And it doesn't give me errors here either. It was, I sat here I had a video earlier for 14 minutes to an hour. I didn't know what was going on with this. I didn't see the problem up here. I believe this is telling me that the binary is not being built. It's not built right now. So I'm just going to ignore this. I'm going to undo that right there. Save it. Now, if I compile it again, it should be fine. Okay, that's fine. This should go away. I believe that's from the package not being compiled. But let me just restart it. So no formatting right now, but we do have language server when it finally comes online down here. So we can check a couple things. It gives us suggestions, like if we have code that is redundant. So right here, I've added braces in where I didn't need them. and it's going to give me some suggestions, redundant braces. I can just remove them. So we know that's working. It doesn't, I don't have, I don't know if you can enable this, and somebody could tell me in the comments, but if I go to, say, a function, right here, say this function right here. If I wanted to get the signature of this, it doesn't tell me. Yeah, it doesn't tell me the signature. So that would be nice if it did. Let me see if it tells it to me here. So it does tell me here, actually. So I'm not sure why I can't just get it. I'm sure there's a way, and I just don't know. But it would be nice to just hit the key and see see a floating signature for whatever function you're on. But I can't get it to do that. If somebody knows, just let me know in the comments. So yeah, this kind of like this. We have errors as well. And we can go to the definition, I think. Let's see. Right here. So go to definition. All you kind of language servers, for the most part, it just, it works. So we disabled the formatting. We do have linting and suggestions, things like that. We do have auto completion, and we're not using formatting. I am going to add a little bit more linting, and they might just be redundant, but sometimes it does things that Haskell Language Server doesn't do. But for the most part, it looks like it just does the same thing. So this is kind of up to you whether you want to add this extra step, but I'm going to add hlint. So let's go look at that. So this was Haskell Language Server, and that kind of has everything. Another linting for Haskell is hlint, and again, this is going to be, a lot of it's going to be duplicate things. So it's going to give me suggestions just like the other one on most of the same things, but it will have messages that Haskell Language Server doesn't have, but I think it look like most of them are duplicates though. So you may or may not want to use this, but we can just go into the lint module here, and we can just add right here. Quite simple. Haskell. We'll just put a table. So back in our code, I'm going to restart this. And we should see it installing at the bottom. There it is. It's installing hlint. I do know it gives me kind of purple. So one of the ones would just be redundant thing, but this is something that Haskell Language Server also catches. But I do know there are some messages that it doesn't do. So this should give me for both. It looks like it's not giving it to me right now. Let me just restart it, because I believe it shows up as purple for hlint. Haskell Language Server. Yeah, there it is. The purple one is hlint, and when the language server comes online, it's going to show up as green or red or something. But it does give different messages. But again, if you find it's just duplicates and you don't care, you can just leave it off. It's not really a big deal. Yeah, there we go. So we have two different ones going on here. The green one right here is from Haskell Language Server, and if we click down here, this one is from hlint. But it does have its own ones that Haskell Language Server doesn't show, so they're not exactly one for one. Okay, so that's linting, two different ways. So the last thing we want is to deal with this formatting thing. So basically, I like the idea of these being lined up like this, and I like these guys being lined up. And what Haskell Language Server was using by default, and I'm not sure if I have it up here. They were using not this one, they were using the original one. This is a fork. They're using this one right here. So I don't know how to pronounce this. Or Molu. I'm sure I'm not getting it right at all. But this kind of makes everything 2 spaces. And some people may think that's the right answer. These people that made this think that's the right answer. There is no right or wrong answer, but there is a wrong answer, and it's 2 spaces. So I'm not using this one. I'm using the other one instead. But you can use either one. So if we go into conform right here, and Haskell equals oops. So I could do the what was it? Formolu, something like that. I believe that's what it was. Let me try that. Okay, I'm just going to save it. Okay. Now, the weird thing is Haskell Language Server uses this by default. However, it flips the qualified. This one, when I'm using conform and I use it directly, it doesn't flip it. So I don't know what's going on. But it's set it all to 2 spaces. And I said that there's no right or wrong answer here, but there is a wrong answer, and it's 2 spaces. But it doesn't line up any of these. And it doesn't really have any configuration. So luckily somebody fixed this by calling it for, and we can just restart this now. We don't have to wait for the language server to come online because it's not in the language server. Now we have 4 spaces here, but it didn't fix this. So what we can do to fix this is we could use style Haskell. Stylish. Yeah. There's a problem with stylish Haskell though, because this one is not part of Mason. So you will need to get this on your system some other way. And if you're on like Archlinux, you can use Pacman and you can just install, stylish Haskell. Let me see here. Okay, I'm not going to install it. There's another way that you can install it if you don't want to use Pacman. If you're already using Stack, you can just use Stack. And I'm going to talk about Stack in a second here, but this is how you install it. I'm using a resolver, the 2026. I'll talk about that in a second, but it's Stack resolver, whatever resolver you're using, install, and then stylish Haskell, and that will install it. And it will still be, it'll be installed in your local hidden Stack folder, but it will be accessible for your system, so that'll be fine. Let's talk about this resolver real quick. So my system is running GHC 9.2.8, and that's just the way it is in Archlinux. So I need to make sure my Stack is using the same version. There's probably really, people who really know what they're doing that can just work around this. But if I don't do this, I'm not sure what's happening here, but maybe some of my Haskell stuff is system packages and some of it is Stack. But basically, when I come into here, it'll be telling me that the language server won't work at all. And I'll have an error up here saying that it's the wrong version. It'll say that I'm using 9.2.8 and this version was compiled against a newer or older version. So what you want to do is find out what version that your system is using and go to here. And since I'm using 9.2.8 right now, you might be on a completely different version. I'm going to click on this for GHC 9.2.8, and this one says LTS 2026. So when I create a new Stack project, or when I'm installing anything with Stack, I'm going to use that resolver, and I'm going to use LTS 2026, at least for now. But that's on my system. if your system has a different version, use this stackage and find the version you need, and it should work fine. I'm not an expert in Haskell or anything like that. That's just what I found work. I'm sure there's a way to just let stack completely control the whole system, and then you can use whatever you want. But I actually have Haskell packages installed on my system as well. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag for me. So I do need them to line up. I'm not going to show stylish Haskell being installed because it did take a couple minutes to install it through Stack, and it's already installed, but you would need to use one way or another to get it on your system. So let's make sure we have it. Just want to make sure it's configured the way I want it to be. Okay, so we're supposed to be setting this to stylish. I'm going to just check my other files and make sure I didn't make a mistake somewhere else. So it's fine. Yeah, okay. So stylish Haskell is being set here. So I'm going to format. Okay, so it's kind of done what I wanted to do. It's all lined up, looks nice. Qualified's on the right side, or the left side rather, which is the correct side. These are all lined up. I like what I'm seeing here. Everything looks grand, but there is an issue. The first two that set the 2 spaces and the 4 spaces, they were concerned about these indentations. This one is concerned about lining these guys up. So it actually doesn't care about these indentations at all. I can do this, and then if I save it again, it lines up these, but it doesn't fix the indentations at all. So this is doing something. The other ones were setting indentations, and this one is kind of lining things up. But since we're using conform, we can just use both of them. So if I were to, and I'm going to put them in order of which one I want to run first. So if I run the 4 first and then the other one, it's going to set the indentation and the other one's going to line everything up. So this will give me 4 space indentation, and this will line everything up. And also, I didn't show the error, but because if they were ever in the wrong order, it would cause this to fail every time I run it. But this one will actually fix it. So you might get a failure message, but your actual formatting will be fixed. So that's kind of a nice side effect of this. So we know that some of them are wrong, but I'm going to mess this up. Oh, you know what? It's not going to do it right now. I'll have to do it in a second when I restart it because it's not. Okay. So I'm going to put this on the wrong side, and we're going to see a failure down here. But you will see it gets fixed anyway. See? Failure right here. So what happened is the 4 space one failed. It didn't like that at all. It'll see qualified on the wrong side, and it'll just fail out, and it won't run. But the next one runs is the stylish Haskell, and the stylish Haskell fixes it. So if I run it again, I won't get a failure this time. See, it runs successfully this time. So that's a nice side effect of running 2 of them. But now I have this where if I mess up the indentation of any of these guys, it's going to fix it. So now we have nice formatting. Assuming you want it to look like this. For me, this looks pretty nice. I like this. So we have things formatted. We have things lined up also where they're easy to read. We have our syntax highlighting, our language server, and we have linting. And we can run the program one last time. Oops, not nvim inside of here. It is stack. It's going to oh, I thought it was going to. Okay. So let me I'm going to nuke this and I'm going to pull down and show you what's on the server, because basically I put all these things that I've talked about on the version that is on GitHub, but I've just commented them out. So if you've ever watched the very first video and you pull it down, all that information from the very first video is there, but any new information I have commented out, because you may be running a C project and you don't want all this Haskell stuff in your way. Or you may be looking at Haskell and you don't want a bunch of Python and a bunch of C and Go and Odin stuff polluting your config. So they are all added there, but they're commented out. So I'm going to, let me close this as well. What am I doing? So I'm going to get rid of the cache. I'm going to get rid of the share. And I'll get rid of the actual config too. Okay, so it's all gone now. So if I needed to pull this now from GitHub, I would use git clone, and I would use this long command right here. And this is just git clone the URL to the repository, and then I'm telling it I want it to clone as the new nvim configuration. And now if that folder already exists, it'll complain about it, but I've just deleted it. So we pulled it down. Now if I start it up, I'm not going to have any Haskell stuff set up. It's actually just going to set itself up the way it was in the original video with Lua and everything else set up. So let's do that. So this is just it setting its whole self up again, like it was. Basically, it's running like it's for the very first time. Let's see where we're at with Mason. I think everything is ready. Okay. So what I want to do is, now this is just set up for Lua now, like it was in the very first video. So if we go and look in treesitter, we have Haskell here, but it's just commented out. So we can just uncomment, save it, and then we can go into, let's go into the LSP, and we want to uncomment this guy. But then we also need to go down here to right here and uncomment that. That's to configure it, and the other one is to install it. Up here to install it. And we have lint. We just need to uncomment Haskell here. And then we go to conform. And here is, oops. Okay. Did it save that one? Yeah, I do want to save it, but it's, okay. I think I just missed the message. So we've changed conform, lint, nvim-lspconfig, and treesitter. So I'm going to look back over here. I'm just going to restart this, and it's going to install those packages. But Haskell Language Server does take a minute or two. So I'm going to just open up Mason so we can see it. Okay, remember, one of the packages are not here. It's actually installed on the system, and that is the stylish Haskell. That one, it is available to be used by conform, but it is not available yet as a package for Mason. So mason-conform can't pull it, but conform itself can actually configure it and use it. Okay, we got our syntax highlighting. Let's see if our language server pops up. Yeah, looks like it's coming on. There we go. And let's go to No, it's not going to go to definition on that one, huh? There we go. It works on that one. It works on stuff inside this file, I guess, but not, going outside of it. And that worked. Okay, so that's everything I know about setting up Haskell. It's not a lot, but that should at least help some people maybe if they're not sure where to go and how to configure things. If you are like an expert at this stuff and you know how to get, like, I would really like the signature to pop up. I know it does pop up when you're auto completing and stuff like that, but I'm not sure why I just can't get it. And I didn't want to add a separate module. I just want to configure it so it works correctly. Yeah. But yeah, that's going to be everything. And you'll see I didn't add any kind of light language extensions because the only one I was really using was for strings, and it was just easy to put pack there. So I ended up with no extensions at all. And this is about, what is this? I think it's like 500 lines, 380 lines. Yeah, for the little demo. So I think that's about everything. So I hope that was educational or you learned something. Have a good day. See you guys later. Bye.